Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for joining our live stream today. We will be starting the program with a recitation of Quran. Let's welcome Salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير، الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور، الذي خلق 7 سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور، ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير، ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير، وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير، إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور، تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير، قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير، وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير، فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير، إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير، وأسروا قولكم أو جهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور، ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير، هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور، أأمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور، أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاصبا فستعلمون كيف نذير، ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير، أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير، أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور، أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور، أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم، قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون، قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون، ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين، قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين، فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون، قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم، قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين، قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Thank you very much for that beautiful recitation. Before we start the main program, I'd like to take this opportunity to share a little bit about Mahfil and the activities that we have here. Although we are in COVID times, the Mahfil community does a range of different activities throughout the year. These include Quran classes for children and karate tai chi on Mondays, yoga on Tuesdays, parent and toddler groups on Wednesdays and Saturdays, Dua Kumal on Thursdays, Saturday tuition on Saturdays, and on Sundays prayers and breakfast, Husseini Madrasa, and tafsir with Sheikh Bahmanpur. Well, that is in addition to special programs that take place in terms of marriages, deaths, the program during Ramadan, and these programs that we have in Muharram. It's worth noting that even during COVID times, we are continuing our yoga classes, we're continuing elements of our Friday lectures, and we're continuing also some of our tafsir programs on Sunday, as well as others, which you can find out on SICM.org.uk. On our Friday programs, we're very fortunate to bring really nationally and internationally renowned scholars from the Shia Madhab to the center, to Mahfil Ali. And these have included people like Sayyid Fadl Milani, Sheikh Shomali, Sheikh Nuru, and many others, as you can see on this screen. And that's both nationally and international speakers. We also bring in non-Muslim experts who speak on issues that are important to our communities. Some of those have been highlighted on this screen here. And they talk about issues including foreign affairs like Saudi Arabia or India or Kashmir, or it could be issues to do with the arms trade in Yemen, or it could be something to do with Muslims in this country. And what we also try and do at Mahfil Ali is reach out to our wider communities in the society that we live in. Every couple of months we meet with our local church, St. Albans Church. We help during the Christmas time with the homeless charities, including West London Homeless Churches Concern, The Passage. We are involved in different things during Christmas in terms of sometimes going to midnight mass. So we've had over 10 years of going to midnight mass at the local church, and we organize different interfaith activities, including interfaith iftar, going to picnics with those of other faiths, as well as doing joint trips together and working together. These are really important parts of our community, and we hope that you can help and engage with us going forward. And if you'd like to find out more, please go to SICM.org.uk. Thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you a new initiative. If you have survived COVID, you have the opportunity to save others, because the antibodies in your blood plasma can help those who are suffering from COVID. Our NHS is collecting blood plasma of COVID survivors in a clinical trial to save thousands of lives. So if you've ever tested positive for COVID or suspect you've had COVID, you can sign up and help save lives. Go to turntolove.org/plasma. Thank you very much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you all for coming. Just a few reminders once again. When exiting, please exit one row at a time. Please use the hand sanitizer and avoid gathering to keep with social distancing guidelines. The buraq will be served at the end. Q&A, please do remember to forward any questions to sheikrf.com/live. Contactless donations can be made at the back or alternatively online at almahdi.edu/donate. Tonight's program is sponsored on behalf of the marhumin displayed on the TV screens. Please can we recite a Surah Fatiha for these and all other marhumin. Fatiha. Please can we welcome Sheikh with the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And I need to just clarify something, and that will come in a form of a recap. We have been talking about our outer motion, in which we display the nature of our God. God is in all control. We yearn all control. God defeats life. We want to defeat life. God is all wealthy. We want wealth. God knows all. This drives us in this inquisitive nature of ours to want to know every detail of our existential world. This is the breath of God which states La ilaha, that there is no boundary, there is no God, there is no limitation, there is no stagnation. Our human condition is fashioned upon the nature of God. Whether we like it or not, we are going to move forward and we are going to conquer whatever there is to be conquered. The only thing is, it's unending. The journey is an unending journey. The more we know, the more humbled we become at how little we know. But that is the outward motion of claiming godliness through our minds. However, there is also an inner motion. When we lose something of the body and the bodily, God says in the Quran, there are those people who persevere and who say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's amazing. The outer journey is to find God with the mind and to conquer the being in its entirety as if we are the authors and we are the masters. The inner motion is through the loss of the body and bodily, and where we melt away in the absolute beauty of God. Both of these exist and coexist simultaneously. Now that has brought in a question. Well, which one of them is the right one? The answer is both are right. They are supposed to go hand in hand. What we have been trying to say is, claim the authority God has vested within us by disassociating from other than God. It's as simple as that. Conquer the whole universe, as Allah says, لَن تَنْفُضُوهَا. You will not be able to penetrate the heavens and the earth, إِلَّا بِسُلْطَانٍ, say with mighty force. But initially it says, فَانْفُضُوا, penetrate within it all and conquer it all. When the early man used to prostrate before the sun and the moon and the roaring waves, Allah immediately in the Quran reminds us that they are subservient to you. It's not the other way around. You are not subservient to them. They are subservient to you. Know your true worth. Claim your glory. That's the outer being. The problematic issue is not conquering the universe. The problematic issue is becoming subservient to it. How do we become subservient to it? We are its lords. We just said, God has made them subservient to you. Conquer it. In conquering it, how do we become subservient to it? When we feel we are of it and a part of it, and we become overly attached with it. That's where subservience comes. And we try to emulate God through the bodily, and there is a regressive motion. What this means is that the outer world is ours to take through disassociation of attachment with the outer world. Now this is beautifully explained by the statement of Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayhi. When they asked him, well, what is the meaning of abstention? We are supposed to be abstemious creatures. What is the meaning of it? And there was a phenomena, social phenomena in his time of early Sufism, that people who denounced the world, who wore rags, so on and so forth, and they judged other people who did not do the same. So this issue presented itself to Imam Sadiq Salamullah alayh. He responds so aptly, with such wisdom. He said, being abstemious and abstention is not that you do not own gold and silver. Being abstemious means that gold and silver do not possess you. That is the whole goal. Inwardly, we are supposed to detach from the body and the bodily and move towards God in His brilliance. Outwardly, we are supposed to conquer like God conquers, Wahidul Qahar. He is one, the overpowering. Our nature is the one, the overpowering. We cannot help it. But this motion has to be through God, not at the expense of God. And that is the meaning of disassociating from other than God and possessing everything else. You see, that hadith is so beautiful, in which says, Hadith al-Qudsi, in which it says, that I have created the creation for the son of Adam, but I have created the son of Adam for myself. The whole of existence kisses the feet of the children of Adam. But the children of Adam are not supposed to look down towards the earth. The earth looks up towards them. They are supposed to look beyond themselves, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only when we fail to disassociate that there comes a perilous position in which we try to emulate God through the body and bodily. It's the inner being we are talking about. If we did not exploit nature, how would we find cures? How would we create energy? How would we dispel poverty? If we did not understand the workings of nature, how would we perform our godly task? Today, we have become the hands of God, haven't we? We cure. We give life, we prolong life, we will defeat death altogether in a future world. We will create paradise, we will make earth into a paradise, and we will say, oh God, we have created your paradise on earth, now we yearn you. Your paradise is not enough for us. This motion is supposed to take place. It is only when we create paradise and become hell-bent upon our created paradise that we lose out on the ultimate. The hadith that the first Imam gives in description of the noble soul, when he talks about the rank of the godly soul, he explains that that soul's property is, it finds poverty in needlessness. Now how amazing is the way in which he has phrased it. He has used a contrary phrase to what we normally use. We normally say that there should be needlessness in poverty. Needlessness in poverty. That when God keeps us in a state of poverty, God should be enough for us. There is needlessness in poverty. That the heart is filled with God. That the heart is involved with God, so the pangs of hunger do not mean anything. The armies of enemies do not perturb us or deter us from the path of truth. That is needlessness in poverty. But Imam says, no, there is poverty in needlessness. When a person is bestowed with the kingdom of Sulaiman, inwardly they see it all a mirage, and their souls are tending towards God, and they say it is nothing but God. That is the vision to which we need to awaken, that we have possessed it all, we have got it all, and we have nothing. As Hussein says, what does he have who does not have you? And what has he lost? The one who has found you. So the whole idea is that through the mind and the body, we possess the whole kingdom of God. But through the inner kingdom, we relent and give ourselves over to God. That is the way we are supposed to operate. Now in devotion, what happens is that we awaken to our inner sense of poverty. That is the trick. That we give that false God over to the real God. You see, when I feel I have control, that is when the light of God is veiled. When I feel that I can gain life, that is when I'm defeated. When I feel that I have wealth, that is where the defeat comes. The inner state in a state of possessing everything, should know nothing but a dire state of need and poverty towards God. The more needless a person becomes, the more he awakens to the essential need towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is amazing that dua of Imam Hussein that we read. Just think about this dua, it's phenomenal. I mean, we read it again and again. That, oh Allah, how may I thank you when each act of giving you thanks makes me indebted 1,000 times over for you giving me tawfiq to thank you in the first place. And the air that I breathe is yours. The vocal cords that I use are yours. The sound that is constructed by my lips is yours and taught by you. And in addition to all of that, the inner light that you've bestowed me with to thank you in the first place is from you as well. So after having everything, we begin to realize our state of indebtedness to God, not to realize our arbitrary control. Look at the state of Qarun. Qarun emerged. He was amongst the Israelites, but favored one by the Pharaoh. فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. He came out in his glory amongst his people. Now the people were of two types. One looked at him and they said, how much he has been blessed. Now at that point, Qarun was supposed to show his indebtedness to God and to say, this is all a mirage. This is arbitrary, it's a mirage. That is what his response ought to have been. He replied, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. He said, indeed, I have been given these riches due to my knowledge. This is the problematic area. That more God gives, the more indebted we are supposed to become to God. Not to claim that ownership and that glory for ourselves. That is where this devotion comes in. That devotion is an acknowledgement of poverty and need to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at the outset, what happens is that the humility of devotion crushes the ego. Think about this carefully. How humiliating it feels to be serving somebody else. A noble person cannot be ordered around. It's humiliating. This is one of the reasons why the Sufi masters say that choose a master and do not question your master. Whether he's good or bad, evil or good, now that you've chosen him, serve him. In fact, they say be like a dead body in front of the person who washes it. Let them move you as much as they want. Let them do whatever they want with your limbs. You have no discretion. The only reason they say that is so that the ego may be crushed. The very fact that we feel offended shows there is ego in there. When you swear at me and I feel offended, it shows that there is something in there that is claiming ownership and mastership, and that is being hurt. If a person arrives at a different state in which he says, well, I am nothing anyway, swear at me as much as you want. Or a person arrives at this stage where they are not claiming arrogance for themselves. The swearing and the scorns of others will not mean scorn of others, will not mean anything to them. The very fact that we get offended. And for this reason, it is good for all of us to work for somebody else and to feel that humility of serving, so that it may crush the ego and we may arrive at a loftier rank. You know, the worst thing is, according to Luqman Hakim, he said the worst thing is to work for somebody else and be responsible to somebody else. That somebody else is monitoring you and telling you, have you done this work, have you not done this work? Show me your list of work that you are supposed to do. Have you executed it, and why haven't you executed it? It's the worst humility ever for a dignified person. And in fact, that is the one thing that is needed in order to awaken to God. So the first thing devotion does is, it crushes the ego. Now the devotion of God is slightly different. Devotion of God is not only devotion of hands and limbs. That comes easy for us. Yes, He is God, He is supreme. I don't have a problem bowing to Him and prostrating to Him. He is my God. It's easy. The problem comes with God and devotion of God is when God tells us things that we don't like. I'm going to give you some very, very, very tough, hard examples, yes? Forgive me for them. If God decides to forgive Yazid, would it be easy for the lovers of Imam Hussein? It's not, is it? It's a hard one, isn't it? Does God have a right to do that? Does He have a right? I'm asking you. The Quran says, وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. For Allah is whatever is in the heavens and in the earth. يَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He forgives whoever He wants, and He punishes whoever He wants. We have decided to worship such a God, haven't we? And when God decides to take His discretion into His own hands, we will be offended. That is where devotion to God becomes very difficult. That is where devotion is meant to bring us to our knees in total humility first, and then in total surrender, and then in total appreciation of the beloved. So devotion is not what we think it is. It is not the devotion of the limbs. That is how you train animals. We tell an animal sit, it will sit. We tell an animal stand, it will stand. It's same. Our devotion is the devotion of the animals. The real devotion that is sought is the inner devotion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates these instances in order to crush us, and they are favors of God. He sends enemies as a mercy. Honestly, imagine if a person can look beyond the enemy and still be forgiving and loving, and in fact does not even think that I'm forgiving them because that's a statement of arrogance, but thinks, oh Lord, thank you for giving me the opportunity to awaken to myself. Hussein wept as the blades shredded him. They said, why? He said, because of them and for them, but they are killing you. He said, because of me, they are incurring damnation, and my heart bleeds and pains at their fate, that I have become the cause for their damnation. Whereas the Shia says, Hussein has saved Islam. Hussein says, oh Lord, how do I thank you for allowing me to meet with you? Devotion becomes difficult internally. Now we take the issue of the grand monotheist Ibrahim. Ibrahim is a lover of God, undoubtedly. There is nothing that prevails upon the being of Ibrahim beyond his one God. Suddenly God creates a situation in which He gives him Ismail. Ibrahim, in his bodily and psychological constitution, begins to fall deeply in love with his Ismail. He loves Ismail to an extent that he begins to feel guilt in there. That I am being distracted from my one and only. There is a veil that has fallen upon my soul. A dream comes, Ibrahim, part this veil. Cast it aside. Come back to your Lord. Now imagine putting a dagger on the neck of your son, an old father. This is devotion. Inner devotion. O Lord, I am directed to you. There is nothing of me that will remain. There will be no veil before me and you. It will be you, it will be I. Tafsir Safi quotes, Hussein places his hands upon the dagger, embedded in the chest of Akbar, looks towards the heavens and says, Ibrahim, there are no blindfolds on the eyes of my Ismail. And there are no hands that are tied of my Ismail. There are no blindfolds on my eyes, and there are no ropes on the hands of my Ismail. Come and witness the scene. So that is devotion. When we penetrate in this devotion of God, it is not easy. It is meant to be difficult. And how can it be easy when I've associated with this body for so long? When I've associated with psychological ownership, belonging, power, fame, fortune, being in authority, it is not easy. Love children, all of these things, they are veils. They need to part one by one by one. And devotion requires melting away in the one devoted to. Now, that inner light that is in there, it will not rest until it finds it. Now, whether we find it in this world, or we find it in the purgatory, or we find it in the last pit of hell, or we find it in the first level of paradise, it will not rest until it finds itself. How can it rest? How can it rest? I want to find myself. The greatest paradise you give me, all the love of brothers, sisters, children, whatever you give me, there is no rest because I haven't found myself. How can one who is not available to himself find anything else? Have you ever wondered why we find no peace and no rest in our souls? Until and unless I am available, what am I going to rejoice in? I don't even have myself. How can I find arbitrary pleasure and happiness that I get from things that are mirage type? How can they sustain me when the unlimited light is in there? How can the 7 earths and 7 heavens and the paradise and the 8 paradise and whatever is beyond that, how can that satiate? Look at Hussein. Look at the way he drowns in God. There is nothing left in his being but his beloved. He gives, he devotes to an extent that everything is torn apart. What does he say in the last breaths? I am well pleased with your decree, O Lord. Then I am surrendered to your command, O Lord. Think about this. What a devotee. No wonder he inspires us. Do you know why we are so inspired by Hussein? And anybody listening to the story of Hussein will say we relate to this man. He inspires us. Abbas, he inspires us. Akbar, he inspires us. Do you know why? Because it's the light within that recognizes the light outside. The same divinity that is in there, that is hidden away in the veils of the bodily, is manifest in him. Imam Hussein was a wealthy person, by the way. He was. He had Medina and properties in Medina. He had brothers, children. He had servants. He was a wealthy man. The inner being was in a state of poverty to God. And due to this inner poverty to God, he was able to give away whatever was outside him. If you had a son like Akbar, you would sacrifice your billions to secure his life, would you not? If you had a son like Akbar, you would, wouldn't you? He gives his Akbar away. Think about it. Think about it. If you had a brother like Abbas, you would work as a slave for the rest of your lives in order to secure his well-being. He gives his Abbas away. Think about this carefully. The light of Hussein is that core of our reality. We recognize it in him, and that is why we helplessly fall in love with him, because we are seeing beyond the face. We are seeing beyond the lineage. Maybe a person who is a Muslim might see Hussein as a Muslim, but a person who is a Hindu, who is venerating Hussein as much as I am, he doesn't see Hussein as a Muslim. He doesn't see Hussein as a son of Ali and Bibi Fatima. He doesn't see Hussein as a grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. He sees Hussein and doesn't understand what he is seeing inside that Hussein. What he sees inside that Hussein is the light of his own beauty, reflected brilliantly in Hussein. That is the light of all light and religion of all religion. It goes beyond denominations and labels. There's nothing to do with Islam, the one we have understood, the formal Islam, or the organized faith, or Hinduism or Buddhism. The same is the case with the Buddha, the Guru Nanak, the Ibrahim, the Musa, the Isa. Whoever you look at, whoever displays that light, we are drawn to them. That is the brilliance towards which we are supposed to arrive at. Now there is a bit of a mistake in the way in which we are treating the subject of evolving towards God. You see, religion imposes a very negative sense of godliness and piety. Religion teaches us to reinforce guilt. It teaches us we are bad. Religion holds human beings in contempt and tells us to suppress and repress everything that's within. If that was the attitude of religion indeed, then the Blessed Prophet would have come and condemned the Meccans. Yeah? You're not going to get people far more worse than you're not going to get people who are worse than the Meccans. They were beasts, barbarians. Human life, there is no meaning of human life to these people. They kill for fun. They live for killing. If you look at the poetry of the Jahiliyyah, there is somebody complaining about his community. He says, if only I belonged to a tribe that rejoiced in the shedding of blood. I took birth in a passive tribe. The Blessed Prophet should have come to those murderous people, to those people who buried their daughters, and should have said to them, you people are destined for hell. I've come here to reform your children who are untouched by your sins. The Blessed Prophet went to them and said, no. Forgive yourselves. Forgive yourselves. Allah has forgiven you. There is divine light inside you. Emerge. Not only will Allah forgive every sin of yours that has gone before this day, He will in addition convert those sins into good deeds. The religion of Muhammad Rasulullah is very different to the religion being preached today. This sense of piety, to look gloomy and being detached from the world and being sad all day long, and where is this coming from? Don't partake in the blessings of God. Doesn't Allah say, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ? Who is making haram? The beauty that Allah has taken out for His servants and the wholesome foods that He has made specifically for the believers in the hereafter and in this life for one and all. On a night when Salman, Abu Dhar and Miqdad decided that they will leave the comfort of their beds and sleep on the floor and not eat meat anymore. By the way, meat eating should become haram soon, by the way, yes, because our nobility is increasing. But back in the day when it was like the real luxurious item, that they will not eat meat anymore. The verse came, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuharrimu tayyibati ma ahallallahu lakum. Oh, you who believe, don't make haram the good that Allah has made halal for you. This is your bodily constitution. That's how you're supposed to evolve. Rejoice in your bodily constitution, but inwardly move towards God. It's not a question of constantly condemning ourselves and seeing how evil we are. We are born in the ambit of what we consider evil. It is not evil, it's the bodily. People condemn themselves and they loathe themselves. When a person loathes himself and doesn't love himself, how is he going to evolve to God? How is that inner motion and journey going to take place? The book of God says, I forgive so that you may come back to me. لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا. Do not be hopeless of the mercy of God. God forgives all sins. Why does He forgive all sins? So that the light may emerge and culminate in godliness. That's the aim. That's the end. It's like saying to a student, and I've actually seen this in my life, that when a student fails an exam, they go into a regressive trend. They lose confidence and they keep on failing. Or it's like somebody like me who fails a driving test and then fails another one. I did pass. Salawat. I'm just going to tell you this as a side thing. I was very arrogant when I went to give my test. So I was talking to the instructor. I said, what can this instructor, not the examiner, I was thinking, forget him, That's my nature, the arrogant nature. And I missed the stop sign. And he said, you have no minor faults, just one major fault, and for that I'm going to fail you. The next time round, I was so humbled. I had tears in my eyes. I said, oh Allah, please. Make me not make a mistake. I went inside the car and said to the examiner, look, I said, I'm very scared, very confused, don't talk with me. And then I made the biggest blunders and he said, and he passed me nonetheless. Yeah? And I said, well, you shouldn't have. He said, well, I'm the examiner. The inward motion should be to God. The outward world is ours. to take and to rejoice. Now, look at the verses of the Quran. When he talks about the soul that is embodied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes frequent references of this nature. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Indeed, successful is the one who purifies it. Damned is the one who tarnishes it. Purifies and tarnishes what? The human soul. Here is the secret of all secrets. We naturally awaken within an animal constitution. We are endowed with supreme imagination. We have the ability to think. When we have the ability to think, what happens is that beyond necessity, we want more. So when an animal hunts, it hunts for the daily meal. When the human being hunts, the imagination kicks in, but I'll be hungry again tomorrow. Can you see that? And then the day after, and then the day after. In the COVID crisis, why do you think people went to the shops and started hoarding like animals? They lost all trace of humanity. They did not care that there were people outside, or there are old people, or people working at the hospitals who can't come and shop, and by the time they come to the shop, there'll be nothing left. The animality with their imagination kicked in. And they hoard it for today and tomorrow and day after tomorrow and day after tomorrow. And there is no reliance on God after that at all. It is when the human being awakens within the bodily, imagination kicks in, and we have the beautiful knowledge that God has given us, it's directed towards the bodily. When it is directed towards the bodily, it begins to want control. That is what you call greed, insecurity, fear, anxiety. There's an animal. There's an enemy. The animal will bark, will roar to dispel the enemy. But the human being will have preemptive strike to destroy them even before they think of destroying you. Isn't this how the modern world operates? That, okay, they are enriching their uranium. So after 50 years, they will strike me. Just finish them off from now. Economical embargoes, this, that. This is what happens, right? Or look at the policies of the governments. It's amazing the way we are deluded in this world. We sell arms to Saudi Arabia. They are using it on the Yemenis. Now, whatever their feud is between themselves is a political one. But the people who are dying are the ordinary Yemeni people. They are dying. They've got nothing. It's the poorest country on earth. But we, due to our insecurity, we want to increase our capital. Then Brexit comes. Everything we made there, we lost 100 times more. And on top of the Brexit, there is COVID. And after the first wave, there's a second wave. And after the second wave, there's a third wave. It will not stop until we are reduced to rags. Do you know this? Just think about it. Isn't it amazing? In any case, when we awaken within the body, the mind is so phenomenal, but it gets deluded within the bodily properties and workings. So there is the birth of greed, of fear, anger, lust, loss. This is the greatest opportunity to claim our godliness. Believe it or not, the way things are fashioned. This is the opportunity that you are supposed to be greedy, you're supposed to be angry, you're supposed to be lustful, you're supposed to be all these things. Now, if you can curb those things and work towards their opposites, then you are increasing your light and you are immersing yourself into God. Isn't that phenomenal? When we can lie and secure benefit, we say, no, oh Allah, I'd rather trust what you are saying, that you are the one who sustains. I will say the truth and forego this arbitrary gain. And in that act of foregoing it, we claim our light and the light increases. Isn't that phenomenal? At the point of rage, we say, oh Allah, as you forgive me, I shall forego. The light that shines through at that point is phenomenal. But that light is only available at that point. So whatever religion has considered human weaknesses and for which they have made people loathe themselves, in the creational work of God, these are grand opportunities. It's a question of how to deal with them. Every human weakness is an opportunity to claim the light of God. It is not a question of repressing. It is a question of acknowledging. Oh Allah, I am scared. I'm not going to hide it. Oh Allah, I doubt you. I'm not going to hide away from you. I doubt you. Let me acknowledge that I doubt you. And now help me to trust you. You see, the Imams were genuine, authentic human creatures. The fourth Imam, I believe, he says in one of his dua, "O Lord, remove all doubt from my soul." Why would he say that? In their humanness, they have to acknowledge themselves to God. Don't they? Who can be greater than God? And anything less than God is in a state of sin. Sin is the life in which we live. There's a hadith from the Blessed Prophet that the Sufis often quote, and I think this is something that even our ulama might agree to, that if the children of Adam were to stop sinning, I will destroy them. And I will create a creation that can start sinning so that I may forgive them. What a phenomenal hadith. People often blame me for saying loose things from the pulpit. If these people were in the time of the Prophet, I wonder what they would have said to the Blessed Prophet. Why are you giving such loose hadith, right? But it's a question of understanding what it means. That when we fall, we are humbled. Can you see that? When we fall, we see a lack within us. Now, obviously, I'm not going to finish this thing today, so I'll just suffice with an example. There's a phenomenal opportunity created for two individuals, for Iblis and for Adam. Simultaneously, almost. Iblis is asked to prostrate before Adam, and Adam is told not to eat from the tree. Both of them do the contrary. Iblis does not prostrate, and Adam eats. To that level, the opportunity is continuing. Both of them have committed what we call an act of disobedience. Asa Adama rabbahu faghawa. Adam disobeyed his Lord. And he says to Iblis, Allah says to Iblis, Afa asayta amri. Have you been disobedient to my command? Both have disobeyed God. Until this point, it's an opportunity. The human flaws or the jinn constitutional flaws. Until here, it's an opportunity. What happens beyond this point is quite telling. Adam awakens through this opportunity. And he says to Allah, "Oh Allah, there was hidden greed inside me." Because Iblis said to Adam, "Allah does not prevent you from eating of this fruit, but that you may become ever living, or that you may become an angel." And Adam coveted that. He coveted that. He wanted that. He was greedy. Adam turns to God and he says, "Oh Allah, you have revealed to me my inner state of greed and lack of trust of you." He does not say lack of trust and he does not say greed. I'm expressing it on behalf of Adam. Because I do know nowadays the people, how they listen. So I'm giving Adam's intentions here. So you've revealed for me my inner state of greed and inadequacy. Now Adam sets about working on his lack, on his inadequacies. And he becomes a brilliant Safiyullah, the one specially chosen by God. Now we go to Iblis. Iblis does not see the opportunity. His ego prevails. "Oh Allah, you beguiled me and misguided me, and you deliberately did this act in order for me to fail. I will mislead them all as you have misled me, O Lord," he said. Look at the response. So bodily frailties that we have, they are not to be seen negatively in the way that we are accustomed to seeing them. They are supposed to be seen as awakeners to the light. Sins are supposed to be seen as our invitation towards doing the opposite. So when I lie, I'm supposed to become mindful and say, oh Allah, but whatever evil I wish to dispel through this lie, you can dispel it anyway. And on the day of Qiyamah, when I stand before you, I will not be able to lie to you. Isn't it better that I receive my share of punishment here and be free in front of you? When the soul drowns in God in devotion, and they learn through their sins, they learn through their inadequacies and frailties, they submerge into the light. And they begin to complete their light through God. They do not only destroy themselves, but they begin to emerge in the beauty of God, the fullness of God's beauty. Now we find this text in the Quran, that whatever you manifest and whatever you hide, God will bring you to account for it. Now imagine this statement. The Sahaba cried. When this verse was recited, they cried. They said, Ya Rasulullah, what will happen to us? All the intentions that are going on inside us, all the thoughts that are bombarding us. The Prophet smiled. He said, Allah will find excuses to forgive you. However, the deeper meaning here is that the soul needs to awaken that, oh Lord, before you I am exposed and naked. Let me not even feel I can hide away from you. In the depths of my thought, let there be your presence. Let my thoughts be directed through you. Devotion, in the final analysis, and we'll go on with this for the next 3-4 days, in the final analysis is to hand over the conscious being to God, not the body, the conscious being, in a sense that God is available to the thoughts, to the feelings. That is the state of devotion. We find this devotion within the sister of Hussein. It is a day of Ashura. Akbar has tasted martyrdom. Qasim has been taken by the swords. Zainab looks at Aun and Muhammad. Do you value your lives, O children, above the lives of my brother? They say, oh mother, whenever we go to our uncle, he sheds tears and cries and looks away from us. Zainab says to Fizza, call my brother. At that point, it was a time of single combat. Fizza calls Hussein, as the Zakirins narrate. Hussein hesitates, but finally succumbs and goes to inside the tent. When he comes inside the tent, Zainab says, oh brother, look at me. Hussein hesitates. Oh Hussein, look into my eyes. Will you not allow me the honor of giving my children for you? Hussein, do you wish me to stand embarrassed in front of our mother? Hussein tearfully said, but what about Abdullah, their father? Hussein, Abdullah gave them to me for you. He said, if a time comes when Hussein needs assistance, send them on my behalf. Hussein concedes. Now look at this lover of Hussein. She cleans them, combs their hair, puts new garments upon them, beautifies them. I will say, oh Zainab, you are sending them to death like this? They ascend upon their horses, Aun and Muhammad. We are told that Abbas stands upon a small hill with Hussein, looking at the children. As they go, Umar ibn Saad asks, who are these two youths? They are the children of Zainab, the sister of Hussein. I am baffled at the love a sister has for her brother. Zainab already had told them that if you can find Umar ibn Saad, put him to death. If you go to the water, bring water back for your uncle. Aun and Muhammad fight. On is struck upon his head and he descends to the ground. Muhammad comes to him, takes his head inside his lap. He says, "Oh brother, I am soon to join you." He stands to fight and he is put to death. As Muhammad falls, Hussein is unable to bear his grief. He sits upon the hill. Fizza, who is looking at Hussein, she turns to Zainab inside her tent. Zainab looks at Fizza and falls into prostration. Hamid ibn Muslim describes, Hussein goes to the youths. He carries them both in his arms. As he is returning, I see this scene, that their chests are in Hussein's arms, but their feet are dragging against the dust of Karbala. The women would be preceded by Zainab in receiving the dead bodies. Hussein anticipates his sister, but he does not find his sister. Abbas Kummi tells us that the only reason Zainab hesitates to come out is because she does not wish to embarrass her brother. It is the 11th. Hamid ibn Muslim narrates, I found everybody with a wailing woman, a sorrowful heart. I came across 2 young bodies with no one to cry upon them. I asked, did they come without a parent? They are the children of Zainab. Where be they, mother? She is with her brother. Hamid comes to Zainab. She is in the embrace of her brother and lamenting. He says, "Oh dear lady, shall you not mourn your little ones?" She says, "Hamid, I do not see beyond my Hussein." ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون ماتم حسين.
مجرئی خلق میں ان آنکھوں نے کیا کیا دیکھا کہیں سبت پیمبر سانا آقا دیکھا مجرئی خلق میں ایک گھٹری شہدی پشت پہ لائے اس میں ایک گھٹری شہدی پشت پہ لائے اس میں میں نے ٹکڑے ہوئے قاسم کا سراپا مجرئی خلق میں میں نے دیکھا لمحے شاہ کو آلودہ خون، میں نے دیکھا لمحے شاہ کو آلودہ خون، میں نے عباس کو بے جان لب دریا دیکھا، مجرئی خلق میں میں نے دیکھا علی اصغر کا گھلا خون میں تر، میں نے دیکھا علی اصغر کا گھلا خون میں تر، میں نے زخمی علی اکبر کا کلیجہ دیکھا، مجرئی خلق میں میں نے دیکھا میں نے دیکھا شہ مظلوم کو خنجر کے تلے، میں نے دیکھا شہ مظلوم کو خنجر کے تلے، میں نے بے گور و کفن بھائی کا لاشا دیکھا، مجرئی خلق میں ان آنکھوں نے کیا کیا دیکھا، پر کہیں سیبتے پیمبر سانہ آقا देखा मुझे खल्क में
हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना या हुसैन हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना या हुसैन हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना हुसैन हुसैना या हुसैन Allahu Akbar, this is the call of Ali Akbar for as-salat. Ali Akbar for as-salat. You be the witness, he has the surah. You be the witness, he has the surah. He has the seerah of Mustafa. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Forgive me, Mawla, I am the one who severed your access to Al-Qamar, severed your access to Al-Qamar. Hurariyahi, you are the free one. Hurariyahi, you are the free one in both the dunya and akhirah. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Oh Aqa, let me go fetch some water for thirsty children from Al-Furat, for thirsty children from Al-Furat. Oh, will you come back, O Qamar Hashim? Oh, will you come back, O Qamar Hashim? Or will this be to your Al-Wida? Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Ya Ammu, tell me, will I be counted among the martyrs of Karbala, among the martyrs of Karbala? Oh nephew Qasim, you are a hero. Oh nephew Qasim, you are a hero. You are the warith of Mujtaba. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Ya Ummi, I hear my father calling. Hal min Nasir yansurna, Hal min Nasir yansurna. I may be asghar, my heart is akbar. I may be asghar, my heart is akbar. I am the grandson of Murtada. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيك الأب الفضل العباس وأختك زينب الحوراء أم المصائب وأم كلثوم وبنتك سكينة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا زين العابدين سيد الساجدين. السلام عليك يا باقر العلم النبيين الأولين والآخرين. السلام عليك يا جعفر الصادق المصدق. السلام عليك يا موسى كاظم الباب الحوائج. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء وبعيد المدى. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس المدفون بأرض تس. أيها الرضا الراضي بالكدر والكذا مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك وعلى أختك المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا محمد التقي الجواد. السلام عليك الينكي الحادي. السلام عليك يا حسن العسكري الذكي. السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك ورزقنا الله في الدنيا زيارتك وفي الآخرة شفاعتك. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على
Thank you for those recitations. We will now be starting the Q&A. Just a gentle reminder for all questions to be sent to shaykarif.com/live. Please can we start with the salawat? Can God be discovered by those who misunderstand Him and His teachings and His chosen Ahlul Bayt?
I didn't get that, sorry.
Hello? Can God be discovered by those who misunderstand Him, His teachings and His chosen Ahlul Bayt?
God can be discovered by one and all, and even those who claim to understand God and His teachings have misunderstood Him and not understood Him at all. Because, God can be discovered by all, it's a natural process. And even those who claim to know God, even those who claim to know God are not really understanding God. And nobody has been able to interpret His religion accurately. God says in the Quran, then there are ayat that are muhkamat, ukhra mutashabihat. As far as the mutashabihat are concerned, nobody knows its ta'wil, illallah, that's it. Even the Blessed Prophet cannot capture the essence of God as God is. God as God cannot be known save by God. Unless we are totally effaced and destroyed in God, we do not fully come to union with God. And if we are destroyed in God, then it is not us anymore knowing Him, it's God knowing His own self. So long as the knower remains, God is not known. Yeah? So even those who claim to understand His teachings do not really understand it. Now, the chosen prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, what is it that we see in the chosen prophet and the Ahlul Bayt? We see the reflection of the light of God, don't we? How do we recognize it? We recognize it through our own light that is shining in them. Otherwise, we wouldn't recognize them. Other people in their own religions have recognized the same light of God in other faces. Yes? That's how it is. And that is why Allah says the people who believe, the Jews, the Christians, the Sabians, whoever amongst them truly brings faith in God and does righteous deeds, they will have their reward. So now, You ask a Christian, what do you see through Jesus? They will say, we see the beauty and splendor of God. We see righteousness. We see virtue. You ask a Muslim, what do you see through the Blessed Prophet Muhammad? He will give you the same answer. So it's a godly light reflected in all of these wonderful creatures of God.
How should we talk about God to our children, 12 to 15 years old, for example, being brought up in the UK where freedom is a priority? Would you mention hell and paradise or just love and compassion?
No, you would mention responsibility. You would mention consequences of our actions. You would mention becoming God-like and earning the pleasure of God, and teach that the pleasure of God is in being bigger people, forgiving, charitable, caring, responsible, true to our oaths. Describe God in the way that the Blessed Prophet has described God. The way that the Quran says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Everything is through God, the Rahman, the Rahim. All praise is God's. He has created everything. He is nurturing everything. He is the most merciful one. Even those who do not believe in Him, He nurtures them and cultivates them through mercy. Express God through the beauty of God. Teach them responsibility. Teach them to be righteous, upright people. The example of the Blessed Prophet should be taught to our children first and foremost, to say that this was the man who was endowed with godly light. This was his character. His successor, Imam Ali, was like this. His children, Al-Hasan and Hussein, were like this. Teach them their moral, virtuous, spiritual example. That's the way I have found, to express God in a universal, human, godly language.
And mention when your Lord took from the children of Adam, from their loins, their descendants, and made them testify of themselves. Am I not your Lord? They said, yes. How long before we were created did the above verse happen?
So now, if you look at a variety of human literature, they will place this at different times. But what appears here is from the children of Adam, from their loins, it means before their embodied worldly state. So if it is the before embodied worldly state, then time becomes a very ambiguous thing. Was there time being experienced in the way we are experiencing time now, the bodily time? Even the bodily time is experienced differently for different people in the different regions of universe. Of course, we know through the theory of relativity, general relativity, that time and space warp and time is experienced differently. So I think the time factor here should not be taken into consideration. What should be taken into consideration is there is a historical reality of humanity in which they have paid this pledge. And the Quran says that due to their lengthy life on earth, they forgot. They did not retain this knowledge accurately. But for Allah to say on the day of Qiyamah, we will individually remember, shows that it's also existentially embedded within us. That if any soul were to say, is this all? The answer will come, no, it isn't. There has to be some more profound truth to this. There has to be an overwhelming beauty, glory. The whole being must be alive to itself. So that truth is embedded within our human condition. So also a historical reality, but also an existential reality.
Aga Mehdi Puya claims that the description of Jannah in the Quran is figurative. What is your opinion?
I feel that the description of Jannah in Quran is very physical and accurate. It might not have physical properties in the way we understand physicality. In a dream world, we see images and pictures that we associate with physical beings. But when we awaken, we know, hold on, I was in an imaginative world. There was no object that I can call solid there because they are in this world. So in that world, in a spaceless world, how can I have solidity, liquidity, It's matter extended in space. So the descriptions are very physical, yet the reality may not be physical, but it is expressing the same thing. The evidence for that is in the verse of the Quran, that they will be given sustenance. And the people of paradise will say, هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِ. This is the thing that we were sustained with previously. And the Quran responds, وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا. And they will be given it again in its resemblance. So those physical descriptions are accurate, but it might not have the physicality that we have here. However, when we look at the descriptions of hell, they seem to be extremely physical. As soon as their skins are burnt, we will replace them with other skins. So it seems that hell is a very physical, darkened place like the body. Body, as Sohrawardi and others used to say, is a veil, is a darkened place. We need to arrive in a state of enlightenment and a state of light. So hell seems to be very bodily. But as we progress outside hell, paradise becomes less physical, yet maintaining the physical descriptions at a level far more brilliant that can be accommodated by matter. It seems that way.
What is the difference between lack of ego and lack of self-respect or self-esteem?
Sometimes self-esteem may be a sign of ego. Yes? Now, there is a poor person who does not beg due to self-respect. I will rely on Allah. Sometimes a person who is oppressed does not complain due to their self-esteem, seeing this complaint below their nobility. Sometimes a person will walk away from a reward because they see it unbefitting for them. At other point, a person due to ego will walk away. I'm better than this. So there is a huge distinction between ego, arrogance, and self-respect and self-esteem. Self-respect can coexist with godliness and lack of ego. But sometimes self-respect is also existent with ego and arrogance. The inner being will be the compass that tells us that this is self-respect born through a state of nobility and godliness, and this is self-respect born through the clutches of ego and arrogance. The inner being will tell us. I feel. Allah says, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. The inner being knows.
That's all we have time for today. Just another reminder that all questions can be asked at